Hi, I'm back again to give my YouTube people correct gists about the popular country that most people don't want to visit, most people don't want to live in, and that is Saudi Arabia. Like I always say, I lived in Saudi Arabia for 2 good years. So today I'm going to give you gist on do's and don'ts, especially for those on contract, those that have very good job contracts, those in the medical field. There are certain things you shouldn't do. In short, generally, if you move into any country, you should try and find out the things, things that as an expatriate, things you shouldn't do, things you should do, and whatnot. You know. So I just remember there's this particular thing that happened when I worked at the rehabilitation center at let me not call the name of the city, but that was where I worked. The first place I worked when I moved to Saudi Arabia. So at the rehabilitation center, we had the mamas, those under the nurses would all take care of the patients, administer their drugs, check their vitals, and and all that. So there was this particular day that was on a night shift. So okay, the thing is, most of our patients, a rehabilitation center, you know what it's all about. Most of the patients are not so okay, do you understand? Something like that. So one of my colleague then, she was in charge of a particular patient, and that patient's case was like quite serious. She used to incur injuries on herself, slap herself, hit herself. We all knew it was on her medical, it was on her file, It was a normal thing that was known in the hospital, in the rehabilitation center then. So this particular colleague of mine, an Igbo girl, she came from Nigeria the same time I came from Nigeria to Saudi. So this girl was the one in charge of that patient that night. Normally, it should be two or three nurses that would be with the patient. But that night, she was just the only one. I don't know how she was just unfortunate to be the only one. So actually the manager in charge at that night duty even begged her that she should manage and be there because it wasn't supposed to be just one person. It was supposed to be two or three people with that patient because of how severe her case was, and how violent she could be. But they begged her, oh, just stay with this patient this night. Tomorrow we're going to get more people, this and that. There were a lot of explanations. So this colleague of mine took care of the patient, and as usual, her normal the patient, the usual stuff that happens, hitting herself and all. So then she called people, she called our other colleagues. I wasn't on duty that night. She called the other colleagues to help her. They were trying to restrain the patient, give her medication, and then she calmed down. But by then, she had incurred some injuries on herself, hit herself. So she did the normal, my colleague did the normal duties she was supposed to do for that night shift and left the next morning. Then the next day, I was on morning duty the next day. I was on the morning shifts the next day. Then, we had an emergency meeting during break time. So during the meeting, that same manager was present. She wasn't supposed to be present, but she was present on that day. And then she was like, she talked about how, that something happened, the case of something happening to a patient happened, blah, 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 that it's been taken up. We didn't really understand what it was all about. Then later that day, that particular day, next thing we saw police vehicle just arrived at our workplace at the rehabilitation center. We were wondering what it was. And then that manager, they asked her some questions. They were asking us some questions. Oh, this and that. I didn't really understand what was happening. So that same manager calls that my friend that was on duty with that patient the previous night, called her to meet the police people. That was how my colleague was arrested. Ah, we started asking, Nigerians, and we were like, well, quite a number of Nigerians working there at that time. We were asking questions. What happened? What? Then we heard that my colleague, that she was accused of abusing that patient, that they saw injuries on her body. She was taken to the hospital. She had a kind of a particular something happened to her, and she was taken to another clinic, where she's always being investigated and monitored. So, and it was realized that they found injuries on her body, and then they were asking questions. That was how police was involved. And this same manager that begged my colleague to be the only one on duty on that night did not even come out to say the truth. He's an Arab woman now, he's a Saudi lady. So that was how my friend got arrested. We actually started protesting, the Nigerians at work, that they were like, no, this thing cannot happen. How? We know that patient can be like that. We already know her case. Okay, look for a way to present the case to the police. Let them know what happened. After all the protests, she was released that day. I think it was 8, 9 p.m. in the night. We were at our accommodation, and then we found out that she was released. And this case is not a small case, so that's how it was taken up. Like, she went to court, we had to get a lawyer for her. By the time we were transferred from that particular facility to another city, you know, this girl still, she still had that case going on. In short, by the time I left Saudi, after 2 years, I heard that this girl was still going to court, and they stopped her from working for a while, they stopped her from working for a while. And then, the whole thing, when you're having a particular case, you will not be allowed to work. That's how this girl stayed without salary for months. I don't even know what happened later. I tried checking up on her, and then after a while, we moved on with our life. But this girl had this case for a long time, like a long time. After 2 years, I left. It was like few months after I left that I heard the girl came back to Nigeria. I've not been able to ask what happened or how the case was. So one thing I have to say about this, see, when you're working in a country like an Arab country or a foreign country, where you know that there is a lot of racism and stuff like that, you have to be very, very careful. The thing is, even when you're very careful, things like this can happen to anyone, because this girl, she actually didn't really do it. She didn't do anything. The only thing she did, the wrong thing she did, is that she didn't put down, we put down informations about what happens during a shift. She would have included on her diary that I was told to be the only one to be with this patient, and we're supposed to be 2 or 3 people. Because now she's the only one, and everything was just against her. They were saying she hit the patient and she didn't hit the patient and all those things. And the thing is that we even insisted, there was CCTV, a lot of cameras in the hospital. We insisted, let them present. I don't know if they presented it during the case in the court or something. I don't know if those things were presented. But the thing is, the fact that she was the only one, if there were two, that wouldn't even be a case at all. At least the second person would insist, oh, I was there, nothing happened. And the case wouldn't have gotten to that extent. But because she was the only one, she agreed to be the only one with that patient on that night. That night, So that's how the whole thing escalated, and stuff like that. See, you have to be very careful, especially in an Arab country. Extremely, extremely careful. There's another case I remember that happened. There's this guy, he's a medical doctor. He used to, then most Nigerians, we don't leave our money in our account like bulk of money. We always change it to either you change it to your dollar account, send it out of your Saudi account or something like that. Because your stay in Saudi, anything can happen. We always had that mindset. We know anything can happen. So you don't just leave your money, the bulk of your money in your accounts. Mhm. So this particular guy, he used to help us change money. You send real to him, and then he will change it to naira and send it to your naira account. If it's dollar you need, you send to your dollar account. He used to do that for us. Most of the nurses that were working in my facility at that time. It was one of my colleagues that introduced us to this guy. So this guy, I had after some months, I was changing money with him. Sure, I was using him to change my money. Then after some months, I heard that this guy had an issue. And I was wondering, what was the issue all about? Then this colleague of mine that introduced us to the guy, had to gist us what happened. This was what happened to this guy. So this guy, what happened was that, in Saudi Arabia, they take all these money laundering and all these things very seriously. It's like a serious crime in Saudi. And if a particular huge amount of money keeps going through your account to another country or to something, just transfer up and down, you would be easily suspected. So please note this. If you're living, in short, I don't know that I think maybe this is applicable to other countries too. I don't know. But you see, Saudi, they suspect any little thing, they suspect you of money laundering. It's very easy for them. They suspect so easily. So this guy that has been changing money for us, I think sometimes he gets like a lot of money, a lot of real. Some people will change 10,000 real. You receive your salary, you change your real. So many people. So a lot of money was passing through this guy's account. I don't know if he was now aware because me, even as a newbie at that time, I was new, just the first year. I knew about this and I was very careful. Even when sending money to Nigeria, I was always careful. Let it be very small amount of money and then not frequently. Mhm. So this guy that was changing money for us, I heard from my colleague, I heard that the guy went to Nigeria for vacation. He came back, and that's how one day the police came to his workplace, the hospital where he works, and he got arrested. That's how case started. Oh. What was the case? That is into money laundering. This guy said, oh no, that he's not into money laundering. He's just helping relatives, friends to change money because they don't want their real and he wants the real, all kinds of stories. In short, the case went on and on. And when such case is going on, your passport will be seized. You cannot travel to anywhere. This guy, I think the wife just gave birth that period and the wife visited, was supposed to visit. I don't know if she was even allowed to visit during this whole process. I think maybe she was still allowed to visit. But the thing is that this guy wasn't allowed to leave Saudi Arabia. I don't know what is happening right now with him. I don't know. Because last time I checked him, I checked on him, he said he was okay. But I didn't just want to start asking him what's up with the case. I hope everything is going well or hope it has ended. I don't know how to even ask him, honestly. I don't want to have that conversation with him over chats. So that was how this guy got into trouble because he was helping people to change money. So you see, Arab country, Saudi Arabia, if you're working there or if you live there, you have to be careful about things you do. Very careful. And if you have any court case going on when you're living in Saudi, you're on a long thing, no movement, you're not going to anywhere. You might even be stopped from working and then you're not receiving any salary. You just be there waiting till your case ends. So that's a very serious thing. Everybody needs to be very careful when you're living in this kind of country. There's another trouble. I almost got into trouble too when I was living there. This one happened to me. So there was this guy, most Saudis, one thing about Saudis is that they look very mature. Most of them look very mature for their age. You wouldn't even know. You see someone that is 20. I think it's the same thing with whites too. You see someone that is 20 years and person looks like almost 30 something. That's one thing with them. So when I was living in a particular city, I was living in Taif then. There's this guy that was on my case. He always come around. He would see me. He was like asking me out. And my mind, I was already in my 30s. So I said, this guy is young. I felt maybe I was like few years younger, few years older than him. So I told him, please, just leave me alone. And he could speak English. That's a good thing because most of them would be speaking Arabic. But this guy was always, and he was really good looking. He had a car. He was driving. There's something you need to even note. You see a child of 10 years, 12 years, 15 years driving in Saudi. You see someone trying to drive across the road and you look and then you will see the person's head to be just a small boy. They drive at very young age. I don't know if they have laws about driving at 18 years. I don't know if they do. But that's a normal thing in Saudi Arabia. My YouTube people, oh hey God. That was how this guy kept disturbing me. kept every day you say, ah, no, you're so beautiful, yeah, this, that, this. He will even buy gifts. I'll tell him no. And they are very good at giving gifts. By the time they will wash your head with gifts, you'll be confused. This guy will always bring gifts, flowers, even money. Well, there was a day he gave me money. I actually collected it. To that period, I was actually very broke. I collected the money. So the gist here is that one day, this guy came to my workplace, to the hospital, and came with his mom. And then I happened to be one of the people that were there, when he was being attended to, when we were taking his vitals. Do you know this guy's age? This guy was 17 years old. A 17 years old. Chiking. How old was I then? I think, okay, I was 31 years. A 17 years old guy chiking. And, you know, I would have gone to jail. Imagine if I agreed and I had dated this guy. That's how I would have ended up in jail. Oh my God. My father's prayer has been working on my head. Oh. My dad's prayers has been working, because that's how people go to jail. Imagine, how will it be heard? Hmm? That a 31 years old woman was having a relationship with a 17 years old boy. He's not up to 18, so he's even against the law. I would be jailed. In short, they will jail me and they will throw the key of the jail away in the ocean, in the Red Sea in Saudi. That's where they will throw this key into. They will throw the key away. God, the day I saw this information during his vitals, I say, God, I thank you. God, I thank you. My God is alive. That's how people end up in trouble. Hey, if you're in Saudi, if you're in any country, be extremely careful. Be careful. Any little thing, even in European countries, this thing is rampant. You see someone that looks very mature, maybe a girl that looks very mature and dresses mature. You think she's 20 something years, and then you date her. You find out that she's not up to 18. Next thing they'll say sexual assault. They say this and this, you are abused, this. I remember a story I saw on the news. I think it was on Saudi news, or I think Arab news stuff online. I saw a news about a boy, I think a 17 years old boy that they were on a vacation. They went for vacation in Dubai, and this boy had a relationship with a girl. No. The guy was, no, the guy was 18 years, and the girl he had a relationship with was 17. I think 16, 17 going on 18, just few months to 18. Small boy had a relationship with a boy. That was how they took up the case. I think the boy, whether they arrested him and then they released him, they kept him in Dubai while the parents had to go back to their country. I think they came from the UK for a holiday in Dubai. That was how this boy, sorry, got into a serious case for dating a girl. And it was the parents of the girl that took up the case and arrested the boy. I think he's still going to court right now, because all these cases in Arab countries, it's a long thing. You will keep going to court, and the money you spend to pay a lawyer to go to court is something else. It's not stories, not beans, not be beans at all. That was how this boy, the parents, I'm wondering how, when I read this news, I was wondering how the parents were feeling at that moment or at that time. They will be so devastated from just a mere vacation, from vacation to serious issue. Hmm? Just to do boyfriend and girlfriend. That's how this boy got into serious issues. God should help us, because living in all these countries, if you're a foreigner in any land, you have to be very, very careful. Please, very careful. I'll give you more gist about this in another video. Thank you for listening. I'm your gister and I'm ready to gist you more. Thank you so much. Please subscribe, like, comment. I want to see your comments under the comment section, okay? Thank you so much for watching.